Greetings, everyone. My name is Monica McClellan, First Vice President of Cleveland Section NCNW and Program Chair. I would like to thank you all for joining the Cleveland Section this afternoon for our annual Women's Health Awareness Day program. Now we will have the mission statement and welcome from President Claudette Walcott Martin, followed by the NCNW history by the program co-chair, Essence Doucette.
Good afternoon and welcome to Women's Health Awareness Day presented by the Cleveland section of the NCNW. My name is Claudette Walcott Martin and I serve as president of the Cleveland section. Our section is recognized as the oldest section in Ohio. We've been serving the community for 76 years while continuing to uphold the principles of NCNW. I'm sorry, I thought I had unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Again, we've been serving the community for 76 years while continuing to uphold the principles of NCNW's mission. The mission of the National Council of Negro Women is to advance opportunities and the quality of life for African American women, their families, and communities. NCNW fulfills this mission through research, advocacy, national and community-based services, and programs in the United States and African countries. It has been a yearly tradition of the Cleveland section to hold a Women's Health Awareness Day for the community, and it is vital that we continue this tradition, especially as we face the challenges of COVID-19. Therefore, in keeping with tradition, the Cleveland section welcomes you to our virtual Women's Health Awareness Day event. At this time, I want to thank Monica McClellan, our first vice president, and Essence Doucette, our correspondence secretary, for all of their hard work in making this event happen. And now I introduce you to Essence Doucette.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our programming today. A few housekeeping announcements. I want to let everyone know that I have muted all non-speaking participants because we are recording the session. I've also stopped video on non-speaking participants for the purpose of recording because we intend to use this recording for historical reasons and to keep it, maybe potentially put it on our Facebook or Instagram pages. So if you can't see yourself, it's not because your video isn't working. I did intentionally turn that off. We will have a Q&A session towards the end of the programming. We are asking all participants to utilize the chat and put your questions for the two authors in the chat. In order for me to be able to discern which question should be asked to which author, we ask that you either put JJ or Irma in front of your question in the chat so that when we get to the Q&A section, I can ask that question to the appropriate author. There will also be a short survey towards the end of the programming. It will be just 3 short questions, so please make sure that you stay for that survey. It will help us with our planning for additional programming. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go ahead and play a short video that will give you some information about the history of NCNW. One second. Sorry.
In these times, we feel that in order to achieve
the goal of civil and human rights for all, it is necessary for women of all races and creeds to know and understand each other.
The National Council of Negro Women Incorporated was created and led by a woman of immense vision, far beyond the understanding of the times. Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune knew what a powerful force women of color could be if we were organized and focused. Having been involved with many established organizations, such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the United Negro College Fund, Jack and Jill of America, and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, she knew it could be done. Not to mention creating a school from a one-room building outside of Daytona, which was called Bethune-Cookman College and is now a university. While all of these individual organizations were moving in a positive direction, she envisioned something greater. Thus, in 1935, the National Council of Negro Women was born, an organization of organizations. By 1938, NCNW coordinated regular visits to the White House to bring attention to the need for more Black female administrators in the U.S. government, and the organization was involved in the formation of the Women's Army Corps that led to the desegregation of the military. In the 1940s and 50s, the organization was led by Dorothy Bolden Farabee, an obstetrician and a civil rights activist, and Vivian Carter Mason, a city administrator devoted to social and political reform. Mrs. Farabee and Mrs. Mason overcame the obstacles, and under their leadership, NCNW lobbied for women's rights. They fought racial discrimination and established a national health care system. Sometimes a leader will arrive who will forever change an organization. Dr. Dorothy Irene Height was that leader. She was chosen to lead the organization in 1957. While being one of the major architects of the civil rights movement, she achieved non-profit status for NCNW and shifted our focus to advancing our standard of living. As the godmother of the civil rights movement, she stated, "Empowerment is the most important thing we can give ourselves. Change comes not at the direction of a nation, but at the insistence of its people." It was her vision to purchase the building at 633 Pennsylvania Avenue as the new home for NCNW. And in the year 1996, that objective came to fruition.
We came to love her stories, and we loved her smile. We loved those hats that she wore like a crown, regal.
Following the passing of Dr. Dorothy Height in 2010, former teacher, news producer, and prison administrator Dr. Barbara Shaw stepped up to be the national chair. Her quest was to keep NCNW moving forward. And through her steady leadership and tenacity, we did just that during a critical time. In 2012, Ingrid Saunders Jones was unanimously elected to be the 6th NCNW National Chair. She stepped into the NCNW leadership role and successfully steered the organization to firm financial footing with an emphasis on future growth. Ms. Jones' mantra, "NCNW is alive and well and solvent," became a rallying call, along with her passion to build a stronger Black America. And it was evident in NCNW's direction. For the Future focused on education through STEM, health disparities in communities with HIV and AIDS, financial literacy for entrepreneurship, and public policy through public engagement. When Dr. Janetta Besh Cole was unanimously elected the 7th President and National Chair 1 year ago, she challenged the organization to meet 2 specific goals.
This organization is poised to be more intergenerational and to be more prominent nationally and ultimately internationally.
Having presided over the only 2 colleges for women of color in the U.S., Spelman and Bennett, Dr. Cole understands that to reach its full potential, NCNW must have deep roots as well as emboldened wings.
You need to look back in order to go forward. The folk who grew me up said, you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been.
Dr. Cole is responsible for launching Girl Tech, a symposium for women in technology that reaches across the country in order to share ideas, mentor one another, and network within the industry. The inaugural year of the HBCU tour has sparked interest in over 3,000 high school students and is already in the planning stages to overshadow this year's efforts.
I might be able, in this period, working with others, to bring NCNW more prominently back on the national scene. There should never be a convening around a table, certainly having anything to do with Black women, where NCNW does not have a seat.
Beautiful.
Wow, that was a powerful message there.
Yes, yes, it was. Oh my goodness.
Everyone attending the program today, I want you to open your minds and your hearts and receive these powerful presentations that will be delivered today by our 2 local authors and writers. And I am going to introduce the first author to you and give you a quick bio on her. I want to introduce to you J.J. Winston. J.J. Winston is a licensed independent social worker and an attorney who for 19 years served as an advocate for individuals and their families who suffer with behavioral health disorders. J.J. Winston is currently employed as a magistrate judge in family court in Cleveland, Ohio. She is the proud mother of 2 adult children. She is a wife and an author of 2 novels and 1 nonfiction workbook. I now introduce to you today to present J.J. Winston.
Hello, everybody. I just want to thank you all for having me. This is just wonderful. That was a very powerful introduction about your organization. Thank you all for sharing. I'm going to do a quick PowerPoint and give people information about stigma. So what we're going to do is just kind of quickly go through it so we can make sure we end on time. And we appreciate you all taking the time out your day to be here. And also, I believe that maybe my judge, Tanya Jones, the Honorable Tanya R. Jones, I think she might be with us today. I just want to tell you all, I work with her. She is the first African-American judge in the history of domestic relations court for Cuyahoga County. And I am proud to be her post-decree magistrate, where I basically do all of her cases after the divorce. So we'll go to the next slide. I like to really work with learning objectives. I think it's important that people get, the information. So I want to tell you what the learning objectives are. The first one is to be able to define stigma. The second one is develop an understanding of how stigma may impact a person's choice to seek treatment for a mental illness. And lastly, describe how stigma impacts perceptions, regarding mental health treatment. And this is an important PowerPoint, and it also leads into what my books are about. My main character is someone who's dealing with a mental health issue. And like so many of us, stigma has impacted his choice and respected treatment. I also wanted to give you a quick bio, a little bit more about myself so that you understand that I'm not just someone who just made this stuff up. I do have a bachelor's degree in social work as well as a master's from Case Western Reserve University. I have my Juris Doctorate from Cleveland State. I'm a licensed independent social worker, and I worked as the client rights officer at the Adams Board previous to going to Domestic Relations Court. I am a member of the PAMI Council for Disability Rights Ohio. I'm the Sickle Cell Chair for Greater Cleveland Chapter, Top Ladies of Distinction. And as you can see with all of my beautiful pink on today, I am also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. Today was our Founders Day celebration because we couldn't have it during the inauguration. So we did it today. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit of statistics so you understand that this is something, mental health is something that affects all of us. According to NAMI, 1 in 5 US adults experienced a mental illness last year. 1 in 20 adults experienced serious mental illness each year. 1 in 6 US youth age 16 or 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder every year. And 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins at age 14 and 75% by age 24. And lastly, suicide is the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. And I just want to stress that during this pandemic, these statistics have even gone higher in respect to suicide. It really is impacting our community. Just wanted to let you guys know just how many people are dealing with this. Major depressive episodes, 19.4 million, schizophrenia, 1.5 million, bipolar, 7 million, anxiety disorders. The most common disorder in mental health is 48 million. Post-traumatic stress, 9 million, obsessive compulsive, 3 million, and borderline personality disorder, 3.5 million. So basically, stigma involves the use of negative labels to identify a person living with mental illness. And these are some examples of just negative labels. We'll go forward to the next one. It's important to understand that stigma leads to stereotypes. And what's the stereotype? A person or thing that confers to an unjustly fixed impression or attitude. Stereotypes are attitudes about a group of people. An example, all people with mental illness are dangerous. And also, stereotypes lead to prejudice. A prejudice is a preconceived opinion. Basically, prejudice is agreeing with stereotypes. An example, I think people with mental illness are dangerous, which leads to discrimination. Discrimination is an unfavorable treatment based on prejudice. Discrimination is the behavior that results from stereotypes and prejudice. An example, I don't want people with mental illness around me because they are dangerous. Therefore, I don't hire them, rent my property to them, or associate with them. SAMHSA defines stigma as a cluster of negative attitudes and beliefs that motivate the general public to fear, reject, avoid, and discriminate against people with mental illness and/or substance use disorder. Stigma can be a barrier to individuals and their families seeking and receiving help because it can cause a person who is suffering with the behavioral health disorder to fear being stereotyped or labeled and being a victim of prejudice and discrimination due to their illness. Basically, stigma can be a barrier to someone receiving treatment. So I'm just going to do this really quickly. Usually when I'm in person with people, we're able to do this in person and we can get a show of hands to see what people's opinions are about this. But I'll just go quickly and I'm just going to ask, is it true or false that once a person has a mental illness, they will suffer with it for life? And the answer is, it is true. While it is true that most mental health illnesses are lifelong, many disorders are also episodic. This means that the symptoms from the disorder may not always be present. Having a mental illness is similar to having a chronic physical disorder like asthma, diabetes, arthritis, or high blood pressure. Because like these disorders, people with mental illness can live positive, productive lives when their illness is managed. The next question is it true or false that females are more likely to have a mental illness than males? And it seems like it's a lot of females here. So the answer is men and women are equally affected by mental illness in general, but women may experience higher rates of specific illness, such as eating disorders and depression. Men may have higher rates of some disorders, such as alcoholism and ADHD. Some mental illnesses are relatively equally shared by men and women, like bipolar disorder. All righty, excellent. Is it true or false that medication is the best treatment for a person experiencing a mental illness because it cures the underlying disease? Medication does not cure mental health illness, but it can be an effective tool in helping to manage the symptoms of the illness and is one of numerous treatments that may be used to help a person recover. Other treatments that may also be used include counseling, psychotherapy, social and recreational groups, self-help, holistic approaches, religious support, hospital care, outpatient treatment, and partial hospitalization. The best options are determined by the patient along with his or her treatment providers. Is it true that African Americans are 20% more likely to suffer with a serious mental health issue in comparison with the general public or population? This is true. African Americans sometimes experience more severe forms of mental health conditions due to unmet needs and other barriers that include the following: poverty. African Americans who live below the poverty line are 2 to 3 times more likely to report psychological distress than those living above the poverty line. And just the commentary is because it's very difficult just trying to make ends meet, and that can make you feel a lot of stress. Being a victim of crime, African Americans of all ages are more likely to be a victim of a violent crime, and as a result may suffer with symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I just want to also stress, watching so many killings in respect to our young men being killed by the police sometimes, watching that on the news over and over is also impacting our PTSD and making some of us experience that. A lack of understanding and misinformation about mental health amongst members of the community. Some members of the community regard mental health issues as a personal weakness or a punishment from God. Mental illness is a topic that is not openly discussed, and this is why family and friends of minorities sometimes miss the signs and symptoms associated with mental illness. And lastly, a distrust and lack of cultural competence of behavioral health professionals. According to the Office on Minority Health, only 25% of African Americans seeking treatment for mental health issues in comparison to 40% of white Americans. This may be attributed to socioeconomic factors. And this is according to the 2012 US census, 19% of African Americans did not have health insurance. I'm sure that with the pandemic, that is also even more, a problem right now. So many of us have lost jobs. Is it true or false that most people will never be affected by mental illness? According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, that's SAMHSA, 20% of the general public is suffering with a mental illness or will have a mental illness at some point in their life. Everyone is affected by mental illness, either directly because they are suffering with the mental illness or indirectly because they know someone who's suffering with the mental illness. Stigma in the general public often leads to internalized stigma at the individual level. Internalized stigma is a belief that the negative terms used to describe the disorder are representative of the individual's characters. There have been several studies that show that internalized stigma is an important mechanism that decreases the willingness of some individuals to seek help. Misconceptions due to stigma result in individuals not receiving needed, necessary assistance. And in closing, I just want to tell you a little bit about my books. I did write The Anniversary. In 2020, my book was one of the Independent Author Network's finalists for the Book of the Year Award in the Outstanding Women Literature category. And it's a little bit about my book on the screen. I'm hoping that you'll be able to support and perhaps purchase my book. We'll go to the next screen. My last book just came out last year. It's called The Commemoration, and it is a continuation of The Anniversary. I would like to let everybody know that this book also is dealing with sickle cell anemia disease. My daughter has sickle cell disease, and so I've been dealing with that for many years, and my father passed from it when I was a child. It also deals with human trafficking, so you should pick it up if you don't have it. We'll go to the next screen. In closing, I just want to let everybody know you can find my information. You can go to my website by visiting novelistjjwinston.com. If you sign up for my monthly newsletter, I do a monthly newsletter that deals with all kind of different mental health topics. I will send it to you. And if you sign up, if you'd like to follow me on my social media, my social media address is Novelist JJ Winston. I also have a YouTube channel, same thing, Novelist JJ Winston. Be sure to go on and subscribe. It has been an honor. It has been a pleasure to be able to talk with you all about this topic today. And I want to thank you for allowing me to do that.
I thank you so much, JJ, for that valuable information that you shared with us. And I appreciate you showing up today to deliver it. Next on the agenda will be Irma Somerville. Give you a little history of Irma Somerville. Irma is a mother, grandmother, entrepreneur, author, artist, and actress. Her education includes Ursuline College and Cleveland State, and she has authored 3 books: Walking by Faith, a book of quotable quotes from A to Z, and inspirational quotes. And now I will give you Irma Somerville for her presentation.
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you so much for inviting me to be among all these beautiful queens and listening to JJ. And I'm just so inspired. And after watching that video, I am humbled. So thank you so much for inviting me to your event. My book, as Monica mentioned, that I'm talking about today is Walking by Faith, and it's on meditations, affirmations, and prayers, the roadmap to inner peace. And just along the same lines as JJ was speaking on, I was inspired to put together an easy read about meditations, affirmations, and prayers from what I've learned. So I'm hoping that this book will be a roadmap to finding inner peace by doing daily meditations, affirmations, and prayers. Like the beautiful young sister that spoke at the inauguration, she asked the question, can we find light in this never-ending shade? And that's what we have been going through for the last year. So when I heard Michelle Obama express that in this seemingly never-ending pandemic lockdown, she, like many of us, experienced a low-grade depression. So I had to ask myself, how can I find peace in this quarantine lockdown? I had to refer to my own book. And so each morning, I had to remember to go to my meditative state. I had to remember that fact that each day is a gift from God. I had to meditate on what I am grateful for. I had to affirm that I know that God is still in control, no matter what is going on. I had to pray and ask God to let me tune out the noise of the world so that I could hear from Him. So what is meditation? According to the spiritual meaning of the term, it is not a process of the mind, but of the spirit. That's Matthew 6:22. And meditation is when you listen to God. What is affirmation? I've learned that affirmation is to affirm something is so, to declare it is so. For instance, repeating something positive about yourself can help change your perception. Example, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. What is prayer? So meditation is listening to God. Prayer is when we talk to God, we make a request, or we can just say thank you. We should all want to live our truest, highest self. And once we connect to the source, what I've learned is that we can begin to create the life we want. So the book that I was inspired to write, I call it a bedside table book. You can certainly carry it with you, or you can give it as a gift. But I wanted it to be an easy read from what I've learned. I suggest you take one page a day and read it and meditate on that page. So what I wanted to do is read some of the meditations, the affirmations, and the prayers that I included that help me, and hopefully they will help you. So this is how the book is laid out. As I said, as a roadmap, the first thing in the morning that I do, a meditation, and then an affirmation and a prayer. And the first initials, the first letter of meditation, the M, the affirmation is A, and the prayer is P. And all of this came to me, and I saw it as a roadmap to inner peace. So here's how one of the pages would be laid out, and this is how you can use it. The meditation for the morning would be, I realize every day is a gift from you, God. The affirmation to be repeated over and over throughout the day is, I will treasure this gift and live in my purpose. I will live in my purpose. And the prayer, God, let me tune out the noise of the world so that I may hear what the Holy Spirit is saying to me. Another page, and as I said, I do a page a day. Meditation would be, all inspiration comes from God. I focus on that every day. But you take one day at a time and focus on this all day long. The affirmation would be, I will accept the good God has for me. I will be a good steward of my gifts. And the prayer for the day, Lord, help me to inspire others to live their dreams. I'll read a couple of more pages from the book, and then I'll tell you how you can get the book. Meditation for the morning. With God for me, who can be against me? The affirmation for the day would be, knowing God is always with me, I have no reason to fear. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. And the prayer for the day would be, Lord, thank you for keeping me safe from hurt, harm, or danger. Okay, I'll read a couple more. The meditation. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. The affirmation. My prosperity is not dependent on man, but on God. I will rejoice in the Lord because he is good. The prayer. God, let me always remember to give you the glory. And the last one I'll read, let me see. Okay, the meditation, I embrace the power of the Holy Spirit dwelling in me. The affirmation, I will move in the Spirit, knowing each day presents new opportunities for me to learn and grow. The prayer, Lord, keep me in tune with your Holy Spirit. And I'll leave these quotes with you all. The inspiration you seek is already within you. Be silent and listen. That's from Rumi. Your Father knows what things you have need of before you ask him. That's Matthew 6-8. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And that's how I will end it, with peace and blessings to you all. And again, thank Monica for inviting me. And my book can be found on Amazon, or you can email me at Irma, E-R-M-A .Somerville, SOMERVILLE @att.net. And if you're local, I'll see that you receive one. Thank you again. And thank all of you for being here today. I'm inspired by the work that your organization does. And that video was, again, very humbling. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you, Irma, for that heartfelt message. I do have your book, and I'm quite sure that I am going to pull it out and start reading again. I thank you so much for that message. Now I am going to turn this segment over to Essence Doucette, where we will receive questions and answers from our authors. If you would like to put your questions in the chat, and Essence will deliver your questions to the authors and they will respond.
Does anyone have any questions that they would like me to ask to the authors? I didn't see any in the chat, but just take a moment to put some questions in the chat so we can ask the authors. JJ, I have a question for you. With regards to the statistics for African Americans, why do you suppose, from a cultural standpoint, there is such a stigma to talking about, acknowledging, and getting help for mental illness?
I think it's a number of reasons, but I think the number one reason is that we have taught our families to not discuss our personal business with people outside of our household. And what we need to understand is that this was actually born out of love. And when I say that, our communities saw the harm that was happening to our families due to mental health professionals not viewing our community through the appropriate lenses. And that what they would do is harm our communities. They would take our children. They would split our families up. So, you know, what we need to do is demand a lot of different things right now. We need to demand that we are able to have a conversation about mental health. We need to demand that in every area that we, you know, have to frequent, that there are people who look like us, who have an understanding about our community, so that we're not causing irreparable damage to our community. And I think that in closing, that people often would say, you know what, you survived slavery, so what do you mean you got a mental health problem, or you got an issue? Or, you know, our families are strong. We did 1, 2, and 3, and that's just unrealistic. Everybody has problems. And the questions is, or the, you know, answer is how we deal with it. So I think that, you know, being able to, you know, eradicate stigma is one of the things that I think I was put on this earth to do, and to make, you know, it appropriate for us to have a conversation and not be judged for it, and to have safe spaces within our community and in our families where we can, you know, get help if we need it. I hope I answered your question.
You did. You did.
Thank you.
Okay, I have another question. This one is for Irma. Irma, when speaking affirmations, is there a rule or suggestions with regards to how often you should speak these affirmations? Should it be like a daily morning ritual? And the frequency in which you speak affirmations, does that impact one's mental health, negatively or positively, because you can speak affirmations that are negative as well as ones that are positive. So could you just expand on that a little bit?
What I have learned is making those affirmations 24/7 all day long,
Mhm.
really 365 days a year. But I just laid them out in the book so that that would be meditative saying the first thing in the morning, and the affirmation that you're going to be saying all day long. That's what I do. Just when all of this happened with the pandemic, I found myself stating to myself and affirming to myself that God is in control. God is in control. So that's my way of affirming that, so that I wouldn't get caught up in all of what was going on around me, or outside, or in the lockdown. I had to continue to affirm that I know that God is still in control. I know that God is still in control. So it could be an affirmation as short as that. And I would say all day long. That's what I've learned to do. And I feel better, and I get relaxed when I do that. And it just helps me to get through the day or whatever I'm experiencing at the time.
Mhm. A follow-up question to that, Irma, do you recommend journaling or writing down affirmations in addition to speaking them out loud?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. If you're writing and journaling, or journaling, um, then you'll have that to fall back on,
Mhm.
you know. So if you're affirming, um, God is in control, God is in control, and you write that down, and you're faced with something happening to you or coming toward you in the day, during the day, and it seems like you're being overwhelmed. I'm speaking from my own personal experience. Then if you're writing and thinking about that affirmation that you're speaking into existence, then at some point that what's happened to me is it gets into my spirit. And once it's in your spirit, when I feel bombarded with things, it just automatically comes out. So it's got to be inside, in order to flow out when you're faced with whatever you're being faced with, especially what we're going through right now, what we're experiencing.
If I could just add something to that, from a mental health perspective, journaling is a very, very important tool. It is it's really good to do. It offers you an opportunity to express your, feelings in a non-threatening way. When you get done journaling, you can decide later on if you want to give away your journaling to somebody. And my newsletter for this month is about letter writing during the pandemic. That's one of my stories for this month, which is March, because letter writing is important. And it also helps, older people, some of the people who are shut in. It allows us ability to communicate and to stay connected. I know that wasn't my question, but I just had to throw a little something on that.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
You said it. I just
Yeah.
wanted to you did a great job saying it. I just wanted to underscore it for you.
We have one last question for JJ. JJ, are there any telltale signs that we as family members, friends, associates should be on aware of that gives us an indication that maybe someone may be going through a mental health crisis so that we can potentially provide support or intervene? Are there any textbook telltale signs that maybe you can enlighten us to look out for?
I just want to say that mental health, crisis in particular, don't just happen in a vacuum. These are things that people do see signs and they just didn't know what to do. So some of the signs you might see is somebody who's sleeping too much, somebody who is acting out of character, somebody who's appearing like they're hearing voices or seeing things. And oftentimes, they might tell you they're hearing voices or seeing things. If that happens, you definitely might need to get some assistance. People who are drinking too much, who are using that as a way to deal with whatever is going on internally, you'll see people do things like drink or use illicit drugs. There's those type of signs that people see, but generally is when you see somebody that you know and love acting out of, the ordinary. I don't know your person. You know your person. Everybody has what we call a baseline in mental health, and that is how they normally are. That's your baseline. If somebody is outside of their baseline and they don't seem to be snapping back, you might need to really get some intervention for them. Because what we do often in our community, because of the stigma, is that you have a lot of people who are fearful that they're going to get put in the hospital or they're going to get locked up. And oftentimes the reason why they're in the hospital is because they're very ill by the time we get them. It's like, when you have a small cut on your finger that turns into gangrene because you don't treat it, and then we have to cut your finger off. Okay. So it's like something we could have put a Band-Aid on had we been able to intervene and, assist, becomes something that becomes a surgery. So we need to remember that as, in, our communities, and to, again, let our family members know that there is a safe place for them. And lastly, a lot of people have, issues with mental health because they're dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. They're dealing with PTSD, something that, and it's untreated. No one's ever helped them. No, that was what, my character in my novel is dealing with. So untreated PTSD, to me, is one of the precursors, really, for severe mental health problems. And then, of course, you also have biology sometimes, too. There's some people, just like you have people who have high blood pressure or diabetes, it's in their family gene pool. With some of these mental illnesses, some of it's in your family gene pool, too. But I think that what happens is, just like if you have diabetes, a lot of times with the diabetes too, it's, you don't know what turns it on. It just turns on at a certain age. That's the same thing with some of our mental health problems that we see, is that it's the post-traumatic stress disorder that turns it on, because they see something or somebody's experienced something so traumatic and nobody's helped them. I hope that answered the question.
It did. And thank you so much to you and Irma for taking around the questions in our Q&A session. Now I'm going to show you all a quick PowerPoint presentation. It kind of reiterates how you can interact with the two authors purchasing their books, but it's in a slide so that if you want to take a moment to jot down this information, you can. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. Okay, so for JJ, these are the 3 books that she's written: the anniversary workbook, and the commemoration. Her website address is on the screen. If you want to take a moment to write that down, this is where you can go to order her books. Also in the chat, if you want to go back to the chat, JJ is up for a potential award. So she's provided a link where you can go and vote for her. JJ, what is the specific award that you want to be considered for?
I did an interview for Black Author TV. And I'm trying to be nominated for the award in the beauty, counseling, I think it's health counseling category. It's the very first category.
Okay.
If you click on it. And also I just want to tell people, if you go to my website and sign up for my newsletter, I will send it to you.
Mhm.
And anybody who, signs up for my newsletter today will be entered into a drawing to receive a digital copy of my novel, The Anniversary.
Thank you.
And you can also buy my books on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. My books are wherever there are books is where my books are, including the Cleveland Public Library.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. So for Irma, these are the 3 books that she's authored. Inspiration Quotes for Daily Living, Walking by Faith, which she's highlighted on this presentation. Oops, I'm sorry, let me go back. A book of quotable quotes from A to Z. You can reach Irma at irma.somerville@att.net, and her books are also available on Amazon as well if you go to Amazon. So we are a nonprofit organization. We would love your support to help us fulfill all of our philanthropic goals. So if you would like to donate, you can donate to our Cash App, which is Cleveland Section NCNW. Any amount would be very much appreciated. Alternatively, you can write a check to the Cleveland Section NCNW. Oh man, sorry about that. And mail it to this post office here, P.O. Box 31184, Independence, Ohio, 44131. I'll give you a second to write that information down. Did I mention any amount will be very much appreciated? All right. All right, so we want to thank you for taking the time to look at that PowerPoint presentation. Now I am going to present the survey, which will be displayed directly on your screen here. So give me just a moment to bring that up. You guys should be able to take a look at the survey and answer the questions on the survey. Please use the vertical scroll bar to get to the bottom question, and then you just hit submit.
Oh, submit.
I give everyone a couple more seconds here to complete the survey. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the survey and turn it back over to Monica.
Well, I want to thank everyone for showing up today. Thank you, Irma, for that powerful message. Thank you, Judy, for your powerful message. And I hope everyone took away something from today's presentation, and maybe you can use this information to help someone else. And at this time, I would like to ask our President Claudette Walcott Martin if she would like to have a word before we end the program.
I think you've said everything that needs to be said, Monica. However, again, I want to thank the two authors for their input and bringing this information to the Cleveland section and anyone else that's listening this evening. It has been so helpful, especially during the challenging times of this COVID-19. I believe this is just right on time. And I would wish to thank you again. And Ms. Winston, I'm a neighbor of yours across the street. I'm a general magistrate over in the Cleveland Municipal Court.
Yes, that's right. I met you at the, remember at the conference. I got my hair different, girl.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, well, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Yeah.
I look familiar.
Yeah.
I saw my soror Tamara on there too. So I'm like, hey, everybody's
good.
throwing me
Yeah.
off because I'm seeing you guys out of context.
All right. Okay. But again, thank you very much. And thank all of the participants this evening. And I hope you enjoyed the event. I certainly did. And for such valuable information. And having said that, I'll turn it back over to Monica.
Hey, well, thank you for those kind words.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everyone who showed up, members, family, friends, affiliates, authors, and please come back and attend more of our events. We'll make sure that we send the information out to you, and we will also present on information that will be very helpful to you, yourself, or maybe for you to help someone else. Thank you all, and you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you to my co-chair, Essence Doucette. We couldn't have pulled this off without her. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
All
Okay,
right,
thank you.
bye. Okay.
Bye.
Okay.